My wife shamelessly said she only married me for stability and still loved her ex, so I filed for divorce. But what happened after shattered her world? My wife shamelessly said she only married me for stability and still loved her ex, so I filed for divorce. But what happened after shattered her world? I'm Justin, a 34-year-old guy who thought he had it all figured out. I'd been married to Rachel, my 32-year-old wife, for 5 years. We met at a 4th of July barbecue 7 years ago through mutual friends in Austin, Texas. She was brilliant, hilarious, stunning, and we just clicked instantly. Like when Jim finally got together with Pam on The Office, except apparently I was more like Roy and didn't realize it yet. The dating phase was absolutely perfect. 2 solid years of what I believed was genuine connection. We road tripped across Colorado, talked about everything under the sun, and shared the same dreams for our future. When I proposed at Zilker Park during the Spring Festival, she said yes without a moment's hesitation. Our wedding was exactly what we both wanted, just family and close friends celebrating what I thought was the real deal. The first few years of marriage were honestly incredible. We bought this beautiful ranch-style house in Cedar Park with my name on the deed. Thank God for that decision. Both our careers were taking off. I was doing well in software development, and Rachel was climbing the ladder in digital marketing. We were talking seriously about starting a family. I'm talking picking out paint colors for the nursery level of serious planning. We had our routines perfectly synchronized. I'd handle the yard work and manning the grill for our weekend barbecues. Rachel would manage the interior decorating and meal planning. She made incredible chicken enchiladas and her famous queso dip that all our friends raved about. It genuinely worked for us, or so I thought. But then, about 8 months ago, everything started feeling different. Rachel began getting distant in ways that were subtle at first but became impossible to ignore. She was constantly on her iPhone now, but not in an obvious way. More like she'd receive a text and her entire face would light up with this radiant smile. Then she'd quickly flip the phone face down when I walked into the room. She'd be scrolling through Instagram and suddenly close the app when I sat next to her on our leather sectional. During conversations, I could tell her mind was somewhere else entirely. I'd be talking about work projects or our weekend plans and she'd nod along, but her eyes had this distant, dreamy look like she was thinking about something, or someone, else entirely. The physical intimacy started cooling off dramatically too. We went from being pretty active in that department to maybe once every couple of weeks, and even then, it felt mechanical, like she was going through the motions. I'd try to initiate and she'd have a headache, claim exhaustion, or simply wasn't in the mood. When we did make love, it was different, like she was physically present but mentally checked out completely. I tried bringing it up several times, asking if everything was okay, if work was stressing her out. She'd brush me off every single time, saying she was just dealing with some demanding client deadlines or office politics drama. I believed Rachel's excuses initially because her job at a major marketing firm could be genuinely demanding. But the emotional distance kept expanding, and I started feeling like I was living with a polite roommate who occasionally shared a bed with me. The loneliness was suffocating. The worst part was how perfectly normal Rachel acted in public settings. When we'd go out with friends or visit family, she'd transform into the same charming, witty Rachel everyone adored. She'd hold my hand, laugh at my jokes, and play the perfect wife role flawlessly. But the moment we got home, it was like someone flipped a switch and she'd retreat back into this distant, detached version of herself. What I didn't know at the time was that Rachel had been getting constant advice from her best friend, Tiffany. This perpetually single woman who seemed to view marriage as some kind of prison sentence. Tiffany was one of those people who always had drama swirling in her life and couldn't stand witnessing other people's happiness. She'd been filling Rachel's head with ideas about living her authentic truth and not settling for anything less than pure passion. Then one evening in September, completely out of nowhere, Rachel suggested we try couples therapy. She said she'd been reflecting on our relationship and felt like we weren't connecting the way we used to. She wanted to explore our communication patterns and work on our emotional intimacy. I was actually relieved when she brought it up. Finally, she was acknowledging that something was wrong and wanted to fix it together. I thought this was Rachel taking initiative to save our marriage. Looking back, I realized she was loading the gun she was about to use to execute our relationship. Rachel found this therapist, Dr. Martinez, who specialized in couples work. Her office was in one of those professional buildings in downtown Austin where every door has some kind of therapy practice. Very much, we're here to fix broken people vibes, which should have been my first warning sign. Our first session was awkward as hell, sitting on this beige couch across from a woman with a notepad, explaining why your marriage needed professional help to a complete stranger. Dr. Martinez was professional though. Mid-50s, calm energy didn't make us feel like total failures for being there. She started with the standard questions. How long have you been together? What initially attracted you to each other? When did you first notice problems? Basic relationship inventory stuff. Rachel seemed nervous but was participating actively, which I took as an encouraging sign. What I didn't realize was that Rachel had been having strategy sessions with Tiffany beforehand. Tiffany had convinced her that therapy was the safe space, where she could finally be completely honest about her true feelings without facing immediate consequences. She kept telling Rachel that she deserved to be authentically herself and shouldn't have to hide her emotions for anyone's comfort. The second session focused on communication patterns. Dr. Martinez had us do these exercises where we'd mirror back what the other person said to ensure we were actually listening. Sounds simple, but it was eye-opening how often we were completely missing each other's points. I learned that when Rachel said she was fine, she definitely wasn't fine. She learned that when I got quiet, I wasn't angry, I was trying to process information and emotions. Session 3 covered work-life balance and external stressors. We discussed job pressures, family expectations, financial goals, normal married couple challenges. Rachel opened up about feeling overwhelmed at work, and I shared my concerns about us growing apart emotionally. It felt like genuine progress. I actually started believing therapy might work. We were communicating better at home, making more conscious effort to spend quality time together. Rachel seemed more present during conversations, and some of the physical intimacy was returning. Not completely, but enough that I thought we were heading in the right direction. Dr. Martinez kept pushing us to be more honest about our feelings and expectations. She'd say things like, authenticity is the foundation of intimacy, and you can't build a real connection on partial truths. At the time, I thought she was talking about better communication and being more open about daily frustrations and needs. I had no idea she was loading the gun that Rachel was about to use to shoot our marriage in the face. Meanwhile, Rachel was reporting back to Tiffany after every session. Tiffany kept encouraging her to dig deeper and really examine whether she was truly happy. She'd say manipulative things like, "You only get one life, and you shouldn't have to compromise your authentic self for anyone else's comfort." The fourth session started like all the others. Dr. Martinez wanted to dig deeper into our relationship history, specifically how our past experiences might be affecting our current marriage. Seemed reasonable enough. She asked about previous relationships and how they ended. I talked about a couple of serious girlfriends from college in my early 20s. How those breakups taught me what I wanted in a long-term partner and helped me recognize when I'd found it with Rachel. Pretty standard stuff that felt healthy to discuss. Then Dr. Martinez turned to Rachel. I could see her take a deep breath, like she was preparing for something monumental, like she'd been waiting for this exact moment. That's when everything went straight to hell. She started telling the therapist about Blake, her college boyfriend. They dated for 3 years during school and broke up when he moved to California for some tech startup opportunity. But the way she described him, Jesus Christ, she talked about him like he was some kind of mythical figure who'd walked straight out of a romance novel. Blake was my first real love, she said, her voice getting softer and more wistful. The relationship that taught me what true connection meant, what it felt like to be completely consumed by someone emotionally and physically. Already, I'm feeling uncomfortable in my gut. I mean, we talked about our exes before, but never like this. And the way she was describing Blake made it sound like he was some life-changing experience while I was sitting right there feeling like chopped liver. Dr. Martinez asked how that relationship ending affected her. Standard therapy question. What happened next will haunt me for the rest of my life. Rachel looked directly at me. Not down at her hands, not at the therapist, but straight into my eyes and said, I think about him every day. The room went dead silent. I'm sitting there thinking she misspoke or I misheard something. But then she kept going and her voice got stronger, more confident, like she was finally releasing some huge burden. I married Justin because he's stable and kind and would be a good father. But I never got over Blake. I thought I could love Justin the way I loved Blake, but I can't. It's not the same kind of love. I swear time stopped completely. You know that scene in movies where everything goes quiet and the camera zooms in on someone's face? That was my life in that exact moment. So you're saying you settled for me? I asked. My voice sounded like it was coming from underwater. I'm saying I love you, but not the way I should, not the way you deserve to be loved. You're safe and reliable, and I thought that would be enough. But Blake was passion. Blake was everything you're not. Game over. Marriage terminated. Life as I knew it officially ended. Dr. Martinez tried to jump in with some therapy speak about honesty being the first step toward healing, but I wasn't hearing any of it. My wife had just told me that our entire marriage was built on a lie. That for 5 years, while I thought we were building a life together, she was thinking about another man every single day. Every anniversary, every vacation, every time we talked about our future children, she was comparing me to someone else and finding me lacking. Every time we were intimate, every time she said she loved me, every time she smiled at me across the dinner table, she was wishing I was someone else. I stood up and walked out without saying another word. Rachel called after me, but I kept walking, got in my Toyota Tacoma, and just drove around Austin for 3 hours trying to process what had just happened. When I finally went home, Rachel was waiting in the living room with this weird expression on her face. Not guilty, not apologetic, almost relieved, like she'd finally gotten some massive weight off her chest. She tried to explain herself, saying the therapist had encouraged complete honesty and that admitting the truth was supposed to help us work through our problems. She said she felt liberated by finally being authentic about her feelings. I do love you, Justin, just differently than I love Blake. Maybe we can figure out how to build something real from here now that everything's out in the open. I told her there was nothing to figure out. If she'd been thinking about another man every day of our marriage, she'd been emotionally cheating on me for 5 years. I deserved to be with someone who chose me first, not someone who settled for me because I was the safe, practical option. That's when Rachel got defensive. Really defensive. You're being dramatic and overly sensitive, she said. Lots of people marry someone different from their first love. That's called being mature and practical. I chose you for good reasons. Good reasons? I asked. Like what? My credit score. Don't be ridiculous. I chose you because you're stable and you'd be a good provider and father. That matters more than some juvenile obsession with passion. The entitlement in her voice was absolutely unbelievable. That weekend, I called my older brother Connor and told him everything. Connor's 3 years older than me and has zero filter when it comes to calling out stupidity. Wait, let me get this straight, he said. She suggested therapy so she could officially tell you that you're her participation trophy husband? Pretty much. And she thought I'd be cool with that apparently. Bro, your wife might actually be clinically insane. Like, genuinely delusional. Leave it to Connor to sum up the situation perfectly, but I wasn't done getting kicked in the teeth yet because Rachel's grand plan was just getting started. After Rachel's therapy confession, I knew exactly what I needed to do. While she was at work the next Monday, I called a divorce attorney and got the ball rolling. Texas is a no-fault state, so I didn't have to prove anything beyond irreconcilable differences. Since we didn't have kids and the house was in my name only, the attorney said it should be pretty straightforward. Rachel had been acting like her authentic confession was some kind of breakthrough that would bring us closer together. She kept trying to have these deep conversations about our new foundation of honesty and how we could build something real now. Meanwhile, I was planning to blow up her entire world. The papers were ready by Thursday. I had them served to her at work right in the middle of her weekly team meeting. Figured if she wanted to be dramatic, I'd give her some real drama to work with. I was at Connor's place when she called. I could hear her screaming through the phone from across the room. What the hell is this, Justin? Divorce papers? Divorce papers, I said calmly. I thought that was pretty obvious. You can't just divorce me. We're in therapy. We're working on things. No, Rachel. You confessed to thinking about another man every day of our marriage. There's nothing to work on. She completely lost it. Started crying hysterically about how I was being rash and not giving the process a chance. She said therapy was supposed to help us work through difficult emotions, not end our marriage. I was being honest like the therapist said. You can't punish me for being honest. She genuinely thought admitting she settled for me was some kind of gift I should be grateful for. Connor grabbed the phone. Hey Rachel, it's Connor. Quick question. Are you actually surprised that telling your husband he's your second choice didn't go over well? Don't interfere between us. This is between me and Justin. Not anymore, it's not. You just got served, sweetheart. Maybe next time don't suggest therapy as a way to confess you're not actually in love with your husband. I took the phone back. Rachel was sobbing now, saying she couldn't believe I would do this to her without warning. You didn't warn me that our entire marriage was a lie, I said. Fair's fair. But the real fun was just getting started. See, the house was mine. I bought it before we got married and never added her name to the deed. So along with the divorce papers, I also served her with a 30-day eviction notice. When Rachel got home that night, she was a complete wreck. Mascara everywhere, hair disheveled, looking like she'd been hit by a tornado. You can't kick me out of my house, she said. It's not your house, Rach. Check the deed. She started ranting about how cruel I was being, how she had nowhere to go, how I was destroying her life. Over one moment of honesty. That's when I dropped the next bomb. Oh, and Connor's going to be staying here for the next month. Connor had been going through his own apartment situation. His lease was up and he was between places. Perfect timing. Are you freaking kidding me? You're bringing your brother here to what? Humiliate me? Nah, Connor chimed in, carrying his duffel bags through the front door. I'm just here for the entertainment value. This is better than Netflix. The look on Rachel's face was priceless. She'd gone from thinking she was in control of the situation to realizing she was completely screwed in about 24 hours. Rachel tried calling her parents, but they lived in Phoenix and couldn't help immediately. She tried calling some friends, but most of them were mutual friends who were pretty shocked by the whole situation. The only person who was fully supportive was Tiffany, her best friend who'd encouraged this whole therapy confession disaster in the first place. Tiffany kept telling Rachel that I was being emotionally abusive and that she deserved better, which was rich considering Rachel had just admitted to emotionally cheating on me for 5 years. The next few weeks were tense as hell. Rachel would stomp around the house, slamming doors, and having loud phone conversations with Tiffany about what a terrible person I was. Connor found the whole thing hilarious. It's like watching a reality show, he said one morning while Rachel was having a meltdown in the kitchen, except the main character is completely delusional. She keeps acting like I'm the bad guy, I said. Bro, she basically told you that you're the human equivalent of a participation trophy and then got mad when you didn't want to display it proudly on your shelf. That's my brother. Always knows exactly how to put things in perspective. But the real entertainment came about 2 weeks into Rachel's eviction countdown. I came home from work to find Tiffany sitting in my living room like she owned the place. She was sprawled across my couch drinking what looked like my Shiner Bock, giving me this smug look like she was about to drop some wisdom on me. We need to talk, Tiffany announced before I'd even put my keys down. No, we don't, I said. And you need to leave. Justin, you're being completely unreasonable about this whole situation. Rachel made one mistake in therapy, and you're destroying her entire life over it. The conversation that followed was absolutely unbelievable. Tiffany actually tried to convince me that I should be grateful Rachel had settled for me and that I was being vindictive for not wanting to work through her confession. Connor walked in during this exchange and absolutely demolished her logic with his brutal honesty. After I kicked Tiffany out of my house, Rachel wasn't done with her surprises. Apparently admitting she never loved me wasn't enough. She had one more grenade to throw, and this one would destroy everything she thought she wanted. About 2 weeks into our lovely post-divorce papers living situation, Rachel started acting different again. Not devastated like she'd been since I served her, but excited different. She was back to being glued to her phone, but now she was being extra sneaky about it. Taking calls outside, texting in the bathroom, that kind of behavior. Connor and I both noticed it. Your wife's definitely up to something, Connor said one evening while we were grilling steaks in the backyard. Rachel was inside having what sounded like a very animated phone conversation. Ex-wife, I corrected. And yeah, probably calling Blake, the legendary college boyfriend who ruined her for all other men. Want me to find out what she's up to? Connor used to do some private investigation work before he got into construction management. Old habits die hard. Nah, I don't care what she does. She's got 2 weeks left here and then she's not my problem anymore. But Connor was curious. And when Connor gets curious, things get interesting. Sure enough, a few days later, Rachel announced she was going to visit her college friend Emma for the weekend in San Antonio. Except Rachel looked way too excited for a casual friend visit. She spent 2 hours getting ready, packed like she was going on a romantic getaway, and was practically bouncing with excitement when she left. Emma lives 2 hours away, Connor said, watching from the window as Rachel loaded her Honda CR-V. Wanna bet she's not going to see Emma? I'm sure she's not, but again, not my problem. Come on, man. Aren't you at least curious about the guy who's apparently so amazing that he ruined your wife for marriage? I was curious, but I was also trying to move on with my life. Connor had no such restraint. He followed her, kept a good distance, used his old surveillance skills to tail her without being noticed. Guess what? She didn't drive 2 hours to see Emma. She drove 40 minutes to a hotel outside San Antonio, and Blake was waiting for her in the parking lot. Connor called me from his truck. Dude, you're not going to believe this. She's here with him. They just went into the hotel together. Are you serious? Dead serious. Connor got video of them walking into the hotel together. Rachel looked happier than I'd seen her in months. They stayed for about 3 hours. This is gold, Connor said when he got back. Your ex-wife just committed adultery with a married man. And I got it all on video. Well, at least now I know she's capable of making Blake her first choice for something. Too bad it's just a Tuesday afternoon hotel visit instead of a lifetime commitment. Maybe not useful for your divorce, but I bet Blake's wife would be interested in seeing this. That's when I realized what Connor was suggesting. Blake's wife had no idea her husband was cheating. She was probably at home with their kids, thinking everything was fine while her husband was hooking up with his ex-girlfriend at some hotel. That woman deserves to know, I said. Damn right she does. Finding Blake's wife on social media wasn't difficult. Small town guy, public Facebook profile, plenty of family photos. Her name was Ashley, and she looked like a genuinely nice person. Lots of pictures with their twin boys, posts about family activities, the kind of life Rachel had been trying to destroy. Connor sent Ashley a message explaining who we were and that we had information about her husband that she needed to see. We included the video along with an explanation of how Rachel had been pursuing Blake and using our divorce as an opportunity to reconnect with him. Ashley's response came 2 hours later. Thank you for telling me. I'm so sorry your wife put you through this. Blake has been acting strange lately and now I know why. Within 24 hours, Blake's world started falling apart. Ashley confronted him with the video, and he apparently broke down and confessed everything. She kicked him out of the house and called a divorce attorney. Blake then called Rachel in a complete panic. I could hear her side of the conversation from downstairs. What do you mean she knows? How does she know? Long pause. But you said you loved me. You said you'd been thinking about me. Another pause. Don't you dare blame this on me. You came to the hotel willingly. That's when I realized Blake had been playing Rachel the whole time. He'd probably been curious about his ex-girlfriend, maybe wanted to see if the old feelings were still there. But when it came to actually leaving his wife and kids, not a chance. Rachel came downstairs looking absolutely destroyed. Blake says it's over, she said to me like I was supposed to care. His wife filed for divorce and she's taking the boys. Good for her, I said. Good for her? Justin, this is all falling apart. None of this was supposed to happen. What exactly did you think was going to happen, Rachel? She started crying again. I thought if Blake and I reconnected, it would prove that what we had was real, and then maybe I could figure out how to be happy. By destroying 2 marriages? Connor looked up from his laptop. Rachel, sweetheart, you can't cheat on your husband with a married man and then act surprised when marriages get destroyed. That's literally the most predictable outcome possible. 3 months after our divorce was finalized, Rachel called me out of nowhere, crying hysterically. When she showed up at my place, she looked terrible. She'd lost weight, her hair was unwashed, and she had that hollow-eyed look of someone who hadn't been sleeping. She sat on my couch and stared at me for several minutes before finally speaking. I'm pregnant. The timeline hit me and I realized what she was really saying. Is it Blake's? She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I called him 5 times before he finally answered. When I told him about the baby, he said it was my problem to deal with. He said he never should have met me at that hotel and that if I contacted him again, he'd get a restraining order. Then she dropped the most delusional suggestion I'd ever heard. What if we got back together? You always wanted to be a father. This could be your chance. We could raise the baby together and it would be like a fresh start for all of us. I stared at her in complete disbelief. You want me to help you raise another man's baby? The baby you conceived while trying to destroy his marriage? After I refused and she left in tears, I changed my phone number and told Rachel any future communication needed to go through lawyers. It's been over a year since this whole show started. Rachel's baby was born 6 months ago, a little girl named Emma. She had no one with her at the hospital except her mother, who flew in from Phoenix. Blake refused to be involved in any way, and most of Rachel's friends had distanced themselves after learning about the affair and pregnancy situation. Even Tiffany, her toxic best friend who'd encouraged this whole mess, had backed away once things got too real. Turns out it's easier to encourage someone to live their truth when you don't have to deal with the consequences. Rachel's living in a tiny apartment now, struggling with single motherhood, work, and debt. The court ordered Blake to pay child support, but he lost his high-paying tech job after the divorce and is working retail now. Between supporting his first kids and his own legal fees, there's not much left for Rachel. Meanwhile, I've been doing great. I started dating someone new 4 months ago. Her name is Olivia, and she's a teacher I met through a friend. She's kind, stable, honest, and most importantly, she makes me feel like I'm her first choice, not her backup plan. Last week, I was out with Olivia at this nice steakhouse downtown when I spotted a familiar figure at the bar. Rachel, looking rough around the edges, clearly drowning her sorrows in wine. She came over to our table and made a scene, asking how I could move on so fast and suggesting that maybe I'd reconsider helping her now that I could see how hard things had been. Security ended up escorting her out while she shouted about how everyone had abandoned her and how unfair life was. The whole thing had been a setup from the beginning. The therapy suggestion, the build-up, the dramatic confession. It was all designed to blow up our marriage while making her look like the victim who was just being honest. But it backfired spectacularly. Instead of getting her fantasy reunion with Blake, she ended up pregnant and alone. Instead of keeping me as a backup while she figured out her feelings, she lost everything. I feel bad for little Emma, who's going to grow up with a mother who makes terrible decisions and a father who wants nothing to do with her. But that's not my responsibility to fix. I'm focused on my future now with someone who actually wants to be with me. To anyone going through something similar, don't settle for being someone's backup plan. Don't stay with someone who makes you feel like you have to earn their love or compete with their memories. You deserve to be with someone who chooses you first every single day. Don't accept anything less than that.